high quality. And, I actually used to have a car business. And when you go back to things like cars, the quality of the tools matter. You don't want to strip your screws and so, all that sort of thing, and have the right bit for the task at hand. For example, there's the Pro Tech Toolkit. This one is $70, and this is your jack of all trades kit here. It's the burrito. You open it up, the Velcro here, and then you've got tools to open up smartphones, laptops, GoPros, tablets, everything. So that's pretty handy. And then they have more specialized one like the Manta driver bit set for those of you who are looking for all the kinds of bits out there, not just your Phillips head and your Torxes, but pentalobe screws, the bane of existence when you're working on Apple computers, tri-wing, all of those sort of things. The bits are all steel, they're all lifetime guaranteed, and they're magnetic, so you won't be dropping screws into the bowels of your motherboard. Be sure to visit the link and get yourself a kit. Back to our video. So as ever with the XPS line, this is their premium line for consumers and for businesses as well. So you're paying here for the CNC aluminum chassis, the particularly good looks, the relatively lightweight, might not be the lightest at this point for mobile workstations in this class, but still pretty light, that carbon fiber interior. And also they say a white model is coming, which is going to have a white interior. So it's the whole premium thing, high-end specs, fast SSD that you're paying for. Clearly, if you just need horsepower and you're on a budget, there are always gaming laptops with plastic chassis and all that sort of thing. They'll offer more bang for the buck, but this is for folks who are looking for something that actually looks good and feels solid. So inside we have Intel 10th generation H series CPUs. That means the 45-watt CPUs. You've got to start with the Core i5 on the base model. Then there's the Core i7 6-core, a Core i7 8-core, which is the one that we have. And like I said, the Core i9 will be coming at a future date. That one's also 8 cores. The display, this is new. We have 16:10 aspect ratio. So this is sort of the XPS 13ification of the model, going all the USB-C connector types and that aspect ratio. I think, again, most of you are going to like that. So you have full HD plus and 4K plus resolution. It's plus because you got a little extra height going on. So 3840 by 2400 instead of 2160 pixels for our 4K model. As ever, you have a full HD base model that's IPS, it's matte and non-touch. That one will get the better battery life. And there's the 4K option, which this time around is IPS and not OLED like the last generation. Methinks because typically speaking for productivity work, IPS has better battery life than OLED does when displaying bright colors. And the battery capacity has actually dropped a little bit to 86 watt hour. It's a good display. It's well color calibrated. They claim 500 nits for both displays, whichever one you go to. We didn't quite measure that. I disabled every manner of power settings I could find, including in the Intel graphics control panel. But still, it's a very bright looking display. It might be IGZO. It has that kind of IGZO look. The color calibration, in fact, is good. And there's several different pre-calibrated factory profiles you can go with on this. Good contrast ratio. Wide gamut display. So well done there. I think most people are going to like this. And if you're into this for color accuracy, professional photo editing, video editing, all that sort of thing, you've got that in spades here. For graphics, we have the NVIDIA GTX 1650 Ti, so a little bump up from the last generation that has 4 gigs of DDR6 VRAM inside. It's a capable enough card. It's not really a ideal gaming laptop kind of graphics card, but this is not a gaming laptop. It's thin, it's for business and content creator type people more than for gaming. And the cooling solution is improved, but it's not really intended for gaming. We'll cover cooling a little bit more later on. You have 2 RAM slots. Go that, with an Alienware M15 now and M17, the RAM is soldered on. It's funny that you go to the XPS and you get your RAM slots back. So you can get it with 8 to 64 gigs of RAM and dual channel configurations there. So you've got 2 slots. You can do the math there. That's good. We have 2 M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD slots. Dell fills the first slot with your boot SSD. It's up to you if you want to put one in the second slot. It's nice to have. I appreciate that. So that's really good for content creators who need a lot of space, say for renders
Dell has now totally revamped their XPS line with a series of three laptops. The smallest 13-inch 9300, the mid-range shockingly small 15-inch 9500, and the big boy of the bunch, the 17-inch 9700. If you were looking for one with a dedicated graphics card, you really are though limited to the 15 and the 17-inch options. So which of these two should you get if you are looking for a travel productivity laptop?
The Aero 17 do substantially throttle the CPU when on battery. Wireless performance is a miss for Apple. It is the only laptop without Wi-Fi 6 or where you can't upgrade it to Wi-Fi 6. This is a big one in my mind. People buy these laptops, especially Apple's, to keep them for some time. With Wi-Fi 6 likely to become common over the next couple of years, this is a real shame for them. Take my personal use case. I have a 1 gigabit internet connection and work with people overseas. If I use my MacBook Pro 16, that speed is cut to about half, 500 to 600 megabits, due to Wi-Fi 5 being a bottleneck. I live in a small apartment and don't want to run Ethernet cables everywhere. I know this is a first world problem, but seriously, if the $550 Asus laptop I tested can have Wi-Fi 6 in 2020, we really shouldn't be talking about this when it comes to a $3,000 configuration of Apple's high-end laptop. Moving along. SSD performance is excellent on all these laptops. Just a little note here, if you are looking at last year's Aero 17, my model came with a slower Intel 760p SSD drive. However, Jared did get a much faster Samsung in his newer 2020 model. Anyway, not really an issue as it is easy to upgrade. Talking of replacing parts, the Aero 17, XPS 17, and Razer are all easy to get into and replace the SSD, memory, and Wi-Fi. Props to the Aero 17 and XPS 17 for having the option of a second M.2 SSD. That being said, the Aero 17 is very finicky about the RAM it will accept. For example, it wouldn't accept my G.Skill RAM and I had to reorder HyperX. I'll post a link to the kit I ordered below. Apple is of course a complete disgrace here, offering no ability to upgrade, which sucks. Seriously, in my MacBook Pro 16, I got a 1TB drive. Each of my video projects is around 200 gig. So with the operating system and programs installed, I'm restricted to working on a max of 4 projects at the same time. I really want to upgrade to a 2TB drive, but will have to sell the whole unit to do so. Not cool, Apple. Obviously, I could get an external SSD, but that's just more dongle life. By the way, stating the obvious here, all these laptops came with RAM in dual channel mode. In real-world performance, I found all these laptops performed superbly. Even the Razer Blade Studio with its limited CPU performance was very zippy. Audio latency results are on screen. Props to the MacBook Pro 16 as it uses a real-time operating system, so audio latency isn't an issue for this laptop. Let's talk about heat that you would actually feel on the chassis. When performing intensive tasks, the Aero 17 is the most comfortable device to use. It doesn't get warm at all where your hands are, not one tiny bit. The XPS 17 does pretty well too. It does get a tiny bit warm, but really nothing at all distracting, and I am sensitive to that. The MacBook Pro 16, on the other hand's metal chassis gets very warm when under load. Apple prioritizes running the fans as little as possible, so the chassis does get very warm. However, you can install the Max Fan Control app to raise the fans. I found running both fans on 3,500 RPM is a good balance of noise and comfort for the chassis temperatures. The Razer Blade Studio, though, is dead last here. I found its small, 15-inch metal chassis gets uncomfortably warm on the palm rest and keyboard deck, especially when the graphics card is being pushed. When it comes to CPU temps, the Apple and XPS run close to the max allowable 100 Celsius. The Razer and Aero fare better, rarely going above 90 Celsius if at all. So if you are worried about CPU temps, you know which ones to get. In general, for everyday use, I found the MacBook Pro 16 to be the quietest laptop of the bunch. As mentioned, Apple prioritizes quiet operation over having the laptop run cool, so the fans frequently run so low you can't hear them. The XPS 17 is a close second. Unless rendering a video, I found it ran reasonably quiet. Even when rendering, they weren't high-pitched, so they weren't that disturbing. The Blade Studio was also decent. For light tasks like the Mac, it frequently had the fans off or so low I couldn't hear them, but they did audibly spin up more than the MacBook Pros and had a slight high pitch to them. The worst of the bunch for me was the Aero 17. The fans tend to pulsate, which means they come on for a while, then turn off, even in light loads with the fan curve set to quiet mode. What makes it worse is the fans have a high-pitched noise to them, so it's more audible. When running intensive tasks, the laptop can get quite loud, but you do have good control over the balance of fan noise to power from Gigabyte's included software. Overall, the Aero 17 is not a loud laptop compared to other big laptops, but the fans are definitely more noticeable than these other machines, particularly for light loads. By the way, the only laptop that I noticed coil whine on was the Aero 17, but in my unit it was very faint and almost non-existent. Let's talk about a very important topic, what these laptops look like. To my eyes, the Razer Blade Studio looks the best and is a real standout from that perspective. It's closely followed by the MacBook Pro 16, then the XPS 17, and finally the Aero 17 HDR, which although small for a 17-inch laptop with its thin bezels, it does have a big chin. However, this topic is of course subjective. I would totally buy someone saying that the XPS 17 looks the best because of its edge-to-edge display without a chin. From my eyes though, the Razer Blade Studio Mercury White and MacBook Pro 16 in silver look more appealing than the grey of the Dell. Hopefully they release a frostwhite version like on the 15 and 13-inch XPS. That being said, I do want to warn people, my 13-inch frostwhite XPS seems to chip and scratch easier than other laptops I've owned, so I wouldn't wait around for a frostwhite version. Now, when it comes to the keyboard deck, the Dell shows oil smudges from your hands much more so.
Classic Skyflakes pinasarap ng lilis. Skyflakes Peanut Butter Sandwich.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Lenovo ThinkPad Xtreme Gen 3. So, yep, the third time around is always a charm, isn't it? Not a lot has changed between Gen 3 and Gen 2, but one predictable difference is that we now have Intel 10th generation H series 45-watt CPUs replacing the 9th generation. Graphics got a little bit of a jump, too, because we've gone from NVIDIA GTX 1650 Max-Q graphics to 1650 Ti. And we have a little bit more in the way of display options too, but this is still one of my favorite 15.6-inch mobile workstations. We're going to find out why now. So even when you're not using that killer new mobile workstation computer, well, you still need time for you to
Your idea is waiting to be seen. Put it all on display with a beautiful website from GoDaddy.
relax, unwind, and educate yourself, don't you? Especially these days with elections and pandemics and everything distracting you from actually having a little downtime, me time, a little time for self-improvement. That's Blinkist, our sponsor for this video. They take the best nonfiction books out there and they distill them into 15-minute segmented reads. And if you're not into reading, you prefer listening, audible sort of style, you can actually listen to each of these 15-minute segments.
Strands in your eyes, the color them wonderful, stop me and steal my breath. And emeralds from mountains and thrust towards the sky, never real.
Too. So they have books on all sorts of topics. I mean, I'm into science and technology, but they also have self-improvement, health and nutrition, how to be a more effective manager, all sorts of stuff. So I sat down with the app for a little me time and I read Disatoy's The Creativity Code. And this is about how AI is learning to paint, write, and think. And it's interesting and it's informative, and it's better than your usual doomsday narrative about AI too. The first 100 people who go to our link in the description will get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out free. You'll also get 25% off if you want the full membership. Now, back to our video. All right, so why is this one of my favorite 15.6-inch mobile workstations? Well, it's got that ThinkPad goodness. If you're a ThinkPad person, you get that carbon fiber, 4 layers of carbon fiber kind of build on it. So it's durable, it's impact resistant, yet it feels kind of friendly and not so cold and harsh as a metal clad laptop would. And you've got the MIL STD A10G test that it goes through, like 12 tests plus 20 more procedures to, shock, vibration, dust, all that sort of thing. So it's pretty darn durable for those of you who, well, someday you might get to travel again with the laptop as well. They also have pretty solid build quality and the ThinkPad keyboard, which is always very nice. Now, given how thin this has gotten at this point, you don't have the key travel of ThinkPads of old. There's not enough room for that, but still, very tactile, nice, smile-shaped keys. It's just a delightful typing experience for those of you who still deal in the written word. For display options, they've beefed that up a little bit. So now we have 4 different display options, 2 different IPS Full HD displays, differing in their brightness and their HDR versus non-HDR support level. Though we're not talking really high-end HDR wide gamut or anything, don't get too excited by them. And for 4K, I appreciate this. We have both an IPS wide gamut 4K display option and an OLED display option with touchscreen. I do like touchscreens, even on a laptop this size, but I also appreciate that IPS one because
Romeo moon power? Not cool. We gotta work together and... Stop that extendable robot arm! Hey! Ha! Gotcha! See? I helped. I wouldn't call it helping exactly. Look! Other way! I might as well be flying this thing. Try finding us now, Romeo. Pretty bird brainy, huh? Meh. Hey, enough with the fighting. She started it. Maybe we should just try and stop Romeo's plan? What is his plan? Don't know. My moth's only heard a bit. He calls it Project Moon Crunch. Moon Crunch? Sounds like a cookie. Whatever it is, don't worry. I've thrown him off with my cloud trick. Trick? He tricked you. Sure did. With my tracker device, I pretended to lose you, but I tracked you the whole time. Get the board and magnet away. We'll stop robot. Super cat jump! Hey! Out of my seat!
That hurt.
Gotta do it right this time.
Whoa. Uh-oh. Ouchie.
Oh, Moon, you've sure lost your shine. Well, no one's taking mine. Come on, we have to stop Romeo's cookie plan. Luna, can you try to not get under Owlet's feathers? Ugh, I'll try. You gotta try too, Owlet. Being on a mission is all about dealing with difficult stuff. That's a difficult person. Okay, I get it. Stop Romeo. That's the mission. Step 1. We gotta stop running away from him and take him on so we can shut him down. I like it. To do that, we gotta find him. Nice. And that means owl eyes. Nah, my moths will do it. Stop! This is my owl glider. There he is! I knew it! No, he's there! Look! Romeo in 2 places? That's not actually... Get off my glider, you big tin can! Hey! It's mine! And now these are mine! And what do you know? Here comes the moon again! Catastrophe! Romeo's got moon power! With my lab hooked up to your stuff, the moon is under my control! Let Project Moon Crunch begin! My moon! Everyone's moon. I let it happen. I was so busy fighting, I walked into a trap. I shouldn't have got you worked up. I got myself worked up, but it's over now. Come on, doing this together. Nice and slowly onto HQ and crunch it. That's no cookie, and it's not gonna happen. Time to be a hero. Ready? Owl beats. Owl wing wins! Huh? What? No! Nicely done. I guess you're an okay pilot after all. Thanks. Okay, your turn. Hey! Stop that! Huh? Tickle attack! Stop it! Oh, this way! No, this way! By my cat's whiskers, they sure like arguing. Furballs! Huh? Power up, you silly thing!
It's been 2 months since Dell released their new version of the XPS 15, the 9500. And in that 2 months, which is basically forever in the tech world, how has it held up? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So I'm pretty surprised. I'm pretty surprised in revisiting the XPS 9500. This is a fantastic little computer that really impressed me with what they were able to fit into such a small body. I've been using this off and on since we unboxed it, so let's revisit this thing and see how it still stands up now that the shine has kind of worn off. It still works, but it's a little, it's a little rough around the edges. Frankly, it's still amazing. And I love this laptop. Honestly, this is the first machine that's ever almost pulled me away from my full Apple life. And I mean full Apple life. Watch, phone, computers, tablet. Everything I own is basically Apple. And this computer still draws me away. I mean, so much so that I thought that the XPS 17 would be the machine that would totally make me switch. But we've talked about my issues with the XPS 17, mainly the trackpad. It and I were destined not to be together. And back to, the actual point of the video, I continue to be drawn to the XPS 15. Like when I'm working throughout the house, if I have a real long-winded project that needs a lot of typing with a lot of background research, which means a lot of tabs open in the background, I will use this over every other computer option that I have for a few key reasons. So again, this video isn't going to be that much different than the 1 week later video. There have been no major firmware releases, and I've uncovered no major problems with the XPS since that video 2 months ago. So I don't really like to call anything that I make a definitive review. I treat these videos as more of a refinement of what I still think all of this time later as I continue to use all of these devices. So let's get to the thing that I continue to love every single time I turn the computer on, and it's the display. This display is just unreal. I love, that's 4 loves, the display on this computer. It's 100% my favorite display on any device that I've ever used. You might think that the full HD plus, fancy words for 1080p, but in 17:9 aspect ratio, would be softer, not as color accurate, or I don't know, just not as good as maybe a higher end display or an Apple Retina display. But as somebody that uses 4K and 5K monitors on a daily basis, I really cannot tell the difference in resolution moving over to this laptop. And for that, you get that 17:9 ratio, so you get more usable real estate to work with, and you get better battery life on the device because of that. It's just a functional win because of that. And the bezels, man, the bezels on the XPS 15 are insane. Sure, someday we'll probably get to the point where the bezels are just like the outer edge of the screen and it just holds it all together. But this is as good as it gets right now. And like I've said before, the entire design of the computer really hinges on this display. Since those bezels are smaller, the screen gets to be the same size, but the rest of the body of the computer gets to shrink. So I really think that this feels more like a 14-inch or even a big 13-inch laptop, more than it actually feels like a true 15-inch device. It's so small, it's crazy. Another really nice feature that I continue to be impressed by are the build options. I did consider speccing out another of these XPS 15s, and you can get most of what someone would want: an i7 processor, dedicated graphics card, upgradable RAM, and SSD for under $1,600. And what's cool is, as I was typing out this script, it's actually for sale for $1,450, which is a crazy deal on such an amazing computer. For comparison, on a MacBook at that price, you can't even get the higher end 16-inch model. You end up with a 13-inch model that has an older 8th generation Intel i5 quad core, still a great chipset and still a great machine, but that Apple tax really does rear its head here. 8 gigabytes of slower RAM. Admittedly, it does have a bigger SSD, integrated graphics, and less connection ports. And even with all of that less power, it's going to be a hot running laptop. And that's just a rough deal when you consider how much you can get on the XPS 15 over the Mac. And okay, as an Apple user, if you use Mac OS, you can't get that on the XPS. So darn you, Final Cut Pro X, why do I love you so much? But as I'm comparing it to the MacBook Pro 13, and maybe that's a video we need to make in the future, maybe that's what we'll make for Friday. The thing that I absolutely love about the MacBook is the typing experience. The MacBook Pro 13 has easily my favorite typing experience of any computer that I've ever used. The XPS 15 isn't that far behind. The keys do feel a little mushier as opposed to the very crisp response on the Apple Magic Keyboard, but can you hear that? It feels good to type on, like so much so that it really surprised me as I sat down to type out this script. Normally, when I've been using this computer, it's been plugged into my dock, so I use the monitor and I use an external keyboard, and I haven't gotten as much time to use the laptop's keyboard as much as I'd like, but it feels incredible. To describe that, I kind of made a running shoe analogy in a previous video, and that's another statement that I think holds up pretty well. I use running shoes with some seriously thick cushion on them. They're called Hoka Cliftons, and I use those because it makes running so much more comfortable for me, because as I get older, my knees hurt. I don't like my knees hurt. These keys with their almost muted feel, it's almost like a muted press. It also feels insanely comfortable to type on in much the same way that running shoes do for my legs. There are only two things that I do not like about this keyboard. It's a little too stretched out for my normal size hands. I do have to reach to hit some of the farther away keys like T, Y, backspace, and tab. It's not as seamless as a typing experience as the smaller MacBook keyboard. And the second thing that I don't like is how sharp the edge of this laptop body is. Using this on my lap halfway through the script, I think you can still kind of see them. I had lines on my wrist while typing. If you don't have it perfectly flat like this, it is kind of uncomfortable. Another thing that I've continued to enjoy is the trackpad. There were issues with the trackpads on these when the computer was first announced, and the 17, obviously I had issues with the 17, but thankfully I've never had a problem with mine, and Dell promised to replace those affected and that they would not have any more issues after June, which I hope they've stuck to. I think they have, judging from the fact that I haven't seen anybody comment on it recently on any of the videos, so I think they've probably done a pretty good job fixing that. And in fact, I would like to take a quick moment and give a tip of the hat to Dell. I cover lots of brands, topics, and types of gear here on the channel, and Dell was the very first one to reach out concerned about a specific issue that I had on a computer, mainly the dent. If you remember the dent I had on the grill in the XPS 17, and they wanted to know the order number so they could track down and fix that manufacturing problem. That's awesome. That's awesome. They didn't send me an angry email saying that I shouldn't talk about them. They didn't offer me a new computer to bribe me to be quiet. They really just wanted to make sure that their product was coming out as intended. And for that, I tip my hat to Dell. Like, that is a company that cares about their manufacturing and cares about their products. I'm on board with that. But okay, so off the soapbox, back to the trackpad. This is the most Apple-like trackpad ever. And if you mostly are a Windows user, trust me, that's not an insult. That's not an insult. Apple has hands down the best trackpads in the game, and this showing from Dell is bonkers good. The most noticeable thing about the trackpad is, well, one, how darn big it is. That's great. But what really makes the trackpad that much better is how precise and clicky it is. It's true you don't get clicks everywhere. Like if you try to click along here at the top, you won't get anything. But if you click anywhere except that extreme corner, you will get a very accurate click. And it's accurate enough that I can do my hands still on the keyboard and move the mouse cursor with my thumb technique that has let me exist with my MacBooks without needing a mouse to supplement my computer. Like, you can just truly use just the computer. And again, hats off to Dell for keeping this up. I'm not taking my hat off because my hair is gross. The rest of the body of this laptop still holds up too. The carbon fiber looks and feels amazing. Another thing that this laptop has is this is the best feeling laptop I've ever come across. The port selection continues to be solid, though after 2 months, I do kind of miss having an HDMI port. Yes, thank you, Dell, for including the dongle, which is awesome because I don't want to spend $60 getting basic functionality out of my computer that I've already spent $1,500 on. But HDMI is becoming more and more important to me as I need these laptops to have dual hat. Like, these are dual purpose machines anymore. They need to go between laptop mode and working from home desktop mode so much more now that I'm doing all of this working from home. And a lot of you are doing the same. SD card slots though, they always make me happy. See this face? That's a wow, I'm crazy happy that I don't need another dongle that I can lose and have lost all of the time face. It's a long thing. I mean, so much of what I do relies on SD cards, and though I use this term in a very general way, as a creative, all of my tech needs to record data in some way or another, and most of them use SD cards. And with these slots, you do get 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports and another USB-C port capable for charging. So this laptop is super versatile and can go from walking around the house or traveling or just not wanting to be stuck at your home office anymore. Not that that happens to me all the time. And with one cable, it can go to full-fledged desktop type experience. One cord does all of that. Dang, I love Thunderbolt 3. The last major positive that I do want to refine on is the power. I'm still very happy with the power that I have on my base model. I do not have a dedicated graphics card. I personally installed 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte solid state drive myself, and this thing works well. I use this for both video editing, gaming, mostly gaming because my Macs don't really play games, and while it doesn't play like the top of the line AAA games, for my RimWorld, Minecraft, and other older games like Legacy of Kain needs, it works really well. On the video editing side, it will work better with Premiere than Resolve, as Premiere is a CPU intensive program, and again, this is using integrated graphics, so Resolve is not the best option if you're not going to have a dedicated graphics card. Like I said earlier, even though this base model works for me, you can push it even farther in power for not all that much additional money. Unfortunately, though, there are still some things that I don't like that haven't gotten better, and I still find the thermals on this laptop to be they're okay at best. Now, I haven't run into any serious problems, but I have had instances of thermal throttling while a video is rendering. Now, without getting into the weeds too far, even this thermal throttling for me isn't that big of a deal. I render all of these videos that you see on the channel here in a codec called H.264, which is a very compressed codec that is a pain for a lot of computers to transcode to. So no matter what the machine, there's always some kind of bottleneck. Even my $3,500 MacBook Pro has bottlenecks doing the same thing. So limiting a core or two while a video renders, that sucks. But honestly, those cores probably weren't going to get used anyway, as H.264 for me ends up being only a single core process most of the time. If I did want to export in a more efficient Apple ProRes or other kind of master file, then yes, there would be a substantial performance loss based on the thermal performance on hand and obviously my specific spec layout. I'm not sure if the size of one of these XPS 15s would permit it, but I do really wish that you could pick an option with the vapor chamber that you can get on the XPS 17. That system is darn near like magic. I never once had any real thermal issues when doing those bigger master files that we talked about on the XPS 17. It has a wonderful heating solution. And as far as negatives go, that's really it. And I wish I could find more to complain about because negativity draws views on YouTube. I don't really have any other problems that have gotten worse with the XPS 15. This is a solid device that will work for most professionals. It looks great, has amazing versatility with the Thunderbolt 3 ports, has one of the best keyboards around. It's not very pricey, and it's a good enough device that even us Mac users should be paying attention to it. So after 2 months, do I recommend this? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a Mac user that was kind of looking for a soft transition over into Windows, this is probably your best bet. It won't look out of place next to other Macs, and it gives you some really cool things over and above what you can do on that Mac. Are you a Windows user and you want something small but powerful? Then yes, this is probably as small as you can get with this kind of power under the hood and get anything resembling decent thermal performance. Are you looking for a school computer? Then I still recommend this. This will not take up very much room in a backpack, and it won't be too heavy trekking it around campus. Now, I went to Ohio State like 13 years ago, and my laptop then was a monster like brick. It was pull started. We had to use diesel fuel, much harder than, you know, how easy you kids have it today. And if you liked this video and you are considering the XPS 15, here's a link. I'm going to leave a link to my video right here where I show you how I upgraded mine and how you can do it yourself. And it's super easy. You should definitely go watch it right now. Click right here. Click, click, click.
This video is a bit long overdue, but I'm still getting quite a large number of requests for this laptop, so I finally got my hands on one. One thing I'll need to do differently here is I'll have to review it in a vacuum, so like no comparisons to any other laptop. There are very few 14-inch gaming laptops on the market. I haven't tried any others myself, so this is going to be a first for me. And you also have to understand that you can't compare it against a 13 or a 15-inch gaming laptop because the size difference dictates how big of a cooler you can fit inside, how big of a battery you can fit, portability, lots of different reasons, right? So understand that this review will make some comparisons to 15-inch gaming laptops to use as a point of reference, just so you know what you might be sacrificing in exchange for the smaller form factor, but don't judge this laptop based on those comparisons. If this is better or worse than a 15-inch gaming laptop, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is good or bad. So let's start with the build quality. In terms of build, I would say this is among one of the nicest built laptops in general, not just for a gaming laptop. Structural rigidity is quite good, partly because smaller surface area means it's a bit harder to bend things. The keyboard deck does kind of bow downwards if you press hard on it, especially if you look at it at a sharp angle, but I don't think the base of any laptop I've personally reviewed over like $1,000 has ever been so bad to the point where I was concerned. But what makes this so enjoyable to me is the finish. So you know how rubber is soft and kind of sticky, and how polycarbonate or acrylic is hard and smooth? This is mostly hard and smooth, but with a subtle, like soft finish to it, kind of like rubber. And the softness makes it very comfortable to rest my hands on. For my personal preferences, this is by far my favorite laptop finish that I've come across. Even compared to something like Alcantara on Surface devices, which if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like fabric. I prefer the silicone/rubber feeling. It's very nice and pleasant. The hinge tension is very nicely weighted. It's one-hand openable, but it does have quite a bit of screen wobble. They don't seem to offer a touchscreen, so I don't think that's going to be a concern for most people, but for the few that do care, it is pretty wobbly. They have 3 different options for the screen that you can choose from. There's a 1440p 60Hz, a 1080p 120Hz, and a 1080p 60Hz, with adaptive sync depending on the specific model that you choose. The unit that I'm reviewing is configured with a 1080p 120Hz panel, And I think it's very nice to see that this laptop isn't handicapped with a 60 hertz refresh rate. So one of the things that has traditionally been an issue with 13-inch gaming laptops, aside from the space restrictions for cooling, is that technology wasn't as mature as with 15 or 17-inch gaming laptops. So only now in 2020 did the Blade 13 get a 120 hertz option, whereas 144 hertz became mainstream back in 2018 for 15-inch gaming laptops. As far as refresh rates go, I think 120 is fine. Like, given the GTX 1660 Ti that this laptop is running, I don't think 240 hertz would be something most people would really pay extra for. Regarding image quality, this is actually pretty good. In fact, this is actually better across the board compared to 15-inch 144 hertz panels, and roughly on par with 240 and 300 hertz panels in terms of image quality. And just to be clear, like, I know I'm referring to them by refresh rate, but 240 and 300 hertz panels in general just also happen to be brighter and more color accurate than 144 hertz panels. There was a fair amount of light bleed around the perimeter on my particular unit, and when I checked the response times with the UFO test, the image was pretty blurry. As far as normal use goes, it wasn't as bad as the Blade 13. That thing was bad enough to where text on websites were smearing all over the place, and it was very obvious. The response times here are not perfect, but it wouldn't really classify this as particularly poor or bad enough to where it was noticeable without actively looking out for ghosting issues. This is obviously assuming you're not an enthusiast who can tell if there's ghosting without even thinking about it. And one more potential issue, there is straight up no webcam included, not internally nor externally, so be aware of that. The speakers on this are surprisingly good. You wouldn't really expect something like this to be as good as it is, but I would consider this to be among the best of any laptop. So hardware-wise, you have a pair of drivers handling the mid-range and treble, firing upwards, and a pair of drivers firing downwards onto your desk, which primarily handle the bass frequencies. Now, if you're wondering why the bass driver is pointed down, it's because reflecting off your desk will amplify the volume. So with the mid-range and treble, so like the top firing drivers, you don't really want to reflect them off your desk in order to maintain detail and clarity, but with bass frequencies, it doesn't really matter as much. So for a laptop specifically, the volume matters more, and it definitely has good bass response. The 13-inch MacBook Pro is still the champ by a large margin, but from what I can remember of the Surface Laptop 3, this is very similar to that. Very nice bass response, vocals are well separated, they sound clean, and personally, for me, I use them for both YouTube videos and gaming just because I'm lazy and I don't like wearing headphones or earbuds in general. Okay, the keyboard on this is also very good, but there is one thing that I would like to see improved, which we'll talk about later. So surface level stuff first. The key travel is actually pretty good, and same with the tactility. It's been a while since I've reviewed the Surface Laptop 3, but from my memory and from what I can recall of it, regarding key travel and tactility specifically, I think they are very similar. So if you've ever tried that keyboard, then you'll have a pretty rough idea of what this will feel like. Now, the one and only thing that I dislike about this, I feel like the keycaps are a bit small, enough to where I will occasionally miss a key press. If you look at the keyboard on this, there's a pretty decently large gap between each key, meaning you can increase the surface area of each keycap without changing the otherwise perfect positioning. So that's one area that I think could be an improvement for the next revision. At the end of this typing test, you'll see my accuracy and typing speed. The keycap size wasn't really an issue once I had enough time to adapt to it. And overall, I would say this is in the lower end of the top 5% of all laptops easily. It's not quite as good as the old school 2010 MacBook Pro keyboards, but it's pretty close and gets a lot of things right. Okay, let's talk about the trackpad next. This is easily one of the best Windows trackpads, on par with something like the Surface Laptop 3 or the XPS 13. So hardware-wise, it's made of glass with a very similar silicone finish to the rest of the interior, and that gives it a very smooth surface. As in, you don't feel any grit or tiny bumps on the surface, and there's no feeling of friction or resistance when you drag your finger across the trackpad while pressing down firmly. My finger just glides right across the surface. Very nicely done. In terms of tracking accuracy, they also nailed it in that regard. This is one of very few trackpads where I can place my cursor exactly where I want it to be. It's very responsive, and I have this feeling that because the surface has almost no friction to it, that directly improves the tracking accuracy with very small movements. Like if you want to move your caret to a specific place in a text document, the caret being like the text cursor, this is accurate enough to let you do that with size 11 font pretty confidently. So very nicely done. The ports on this laptop are maybe a little less impressive depending on who you ask. If you compare it to a 15-inch gaming laptop, it's not really that great. Against a 13-inch gaming laptop like the Blade 13, it is definitely better. So I guess it's right in the middle of the two, but on the left you have the charging port, HDMI 2.0. This particular USB-C port supports DisplayPort 1.4 and 65 watts of charging, which I will elaborate on later. You've also got a headphone jack, and on the right are two USB-A's and a USB-C port. This one is just USB 3.2 Gen 2. There's no display output or charging here. If you flip the laptop over, the bottom panel is held in place with way more screws than necessary, especially because it's also held down using clips. Getting inside was quite easy because the bottom right screw forces the panel up, letting you slip a credit card underneath to pry the panel off. Expandability isn't great, however. You only have one RAM slot and one M.2 slot. There's 8 gigabytes of memory soldered on, which is a bit strange. They've always done that on their Zephyrus laptops for some reason. And lastly, the Wi-Fi card is located beneath the SSD. A lot of strange choices here, and I think this should be their top priority in terms of what to improve for the next revision. Regarding thermals and performance, this is going to be a tricky one. The numbers here are in comparison to 15-inch gaming laptops. Again, because this is the only 14-inch gaming laptop I've personally reviewed, it's not like I can put anything else there. I wouldn't judge the cooling performance based on how it compares. Those are obviously bigger laptops that can afford to have bigger fans and bigger heat pipes. But if you're curious how much of a performance penalty you're taking by moving to a smaller 14-inch form factor, this should give you a rough idea. And for anyone who paused to look at the graphs, note that you are allowed to directly compare between these laptops despite their different sizes and CPUs. Those are all Intel laptops, if you're curious. And that's because temperatures are a direct result of how much power the CPU is consuming. You can't compare just the temperatures. Like if I crank the fans up, of course it's going to run cooler. But you can if you also include how much power the CPU or GPU is pulling. In other words, you are essentially comparing the TDP of each laptop's cooler, just like how desktop coolers also have TDP ratings. Given the size limitations of this laptop, I would say the cooling performance and the temperatures are both very good. Neither the CPU nor the GPU ever hit 80 degrees with the fans at full speed. So if you want to lower the fan speed to make them run quieter, then you've got a ton of headroom left before thermal throttling kicks in. I expected good thermals because their 15-inch Zephyrus laptops in the past have excelled in that regard, and they seem to have held up that reputation with this smaller form factor. There's a 76 watt-hour battery, which when paired with the smaller screen and the more efficient Ryzen CPU, should net you around 8 to 9 hours of battery life. I have heard reviews claiming 10 hours, but I guess maybe that just depends on your screen brightness. I think mine is a pretty safe estimate of what most people should get. And one thing that I haven't seen talked about that often is if you're pulling 10 hours now, 3 years later down the line when your battery has degraded, you'll still be able to pull 8 hours for a full-time job. So if that matters to you, I guess that's an added bonus. Okay, conclusion time. In a vacuum, so again, without any comparison to other laptops, this has been a very enjoyable laptop to use, one of my favorites by far. But when I compare it to the very best 15-inch gaming laptops that I've used, which have had like a decade to mature and develop, this is still among the very best. Like the Legion 7i has a nicer screen and the Alienware M15 R3 has a better keyboard, but there's no single 15-inch gaming laptop that exceeds this in all categories. And for that reason, I can confidently say that anyone looking to move to a smaller laptop won't feel like they are losing out on anything significant. I would actually say that overall, in terms of build quality, the keyboard, trackpad, speakers, battery life, etc., this is easily in my top 3 thin and light high-performance Windows laptops. The other two being the Legion 7i and the Alienware M15 R3, not the R2. I don't really have a favorite between these 3 laptops. It depends on what 2 specific areas I'm looking for since they each excel at different things. If you want a portable gaming laptop with no major compromises other than the mediocre upgradability, then I highly recommend this, and I think it's also priced fairly well, partly due to the AMD CPU. Okay, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You really should consider subscribing if you haven't, because big subscribers means companies are more likely to send me laptops to review, which means that I can review laptops that you guys are interested in closer to their release date. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
Your idea is waiting to be seen. Put it all on display with a beautiful.
Back in 2018, we saw gaming laptops trend towards high refresh 144Hz displays with super thin bezels, and that was a big deal because when we got laptops with RTX GPUs, they were pushing out frame rates that far exceeded 60 frames per second, so you weren't able to benefit much with a 60 Hz display. But the one thing that I always thought these laptops lacked was image quality. And when I saw the spec sheet earlier this year for the Legion 7i, the screen looked really good, and that got me very interested in this laptop. Now, most of the reviews for the Legion Y740 last year were pretty positive, I would say, assuming you got it on sale, that is. I think it was $1,900 at retail price, which was a bit of a stretch, but the frequent price drops to $1,400 made it a really compelling option. So my thought process was this: if the Legion 7i took all the good things about the Y740 and improved upon it, like with the screen, then this would also be an easy recommendation, especially because I wasn't able to find any other laptops with a screen this good. So let's talk about that screen first. The base configuration comes with a standard 144Hz panel, but you also have the option of upgrading to a 144 or a 240Hz panel rated for 500 nits of brightness and HDR400 support, and I would consider those two to be the standout features of this screen. The rest of the display is also quite good. The contrast ratio, color gamut, and color accuracy are all what I would consider good, and I don't really have any criticisms to offer there. Except for color accuracy, it's good, but not amazing. I don't know how different the 144Hz panel will be, but for this one, the 240Hz panel that I'm reviewing, you should probably calibrate it if you require perfect color accuracy. The response times are good, but when you enable HDR, for some reason, the response times just tank. Everything is really blurry, and it wasn't even something that I was looking out for. The ghosting was just particularly bad with HDR enabled. Whether you'll actually use HDR is up to the individual person. I don't think the ghosting is going to make this unusable in all situations. For example, it might differ between gaming and watching a movie, but it's not like this feature is available on any other laptop. So even if you don't use it, it's not like you're losing out on anything to begin with. And again, with HDR disabled, the response times are perfectly fine. But really, I think the big feature for me is the brightness. Brighter screens tend to appear more vibrant, and so games will generally look a lot better, especially single-player games with a bigger focus on story and graphics. And when you combine that with ray tracing and HDR, it really is a big step up in the way games look. I'm personally very excited to see laptops running HDR screens and RTX 3000 GPUs. It's going to be nuts. The speakers on here actually sound pretty good despite being bottom firing, and a lot of that is from the tuning they applied in software. This is one of few examples where I actually prefer the speakers with the default EQ applied. They're loud, the bass response is present, and it's enough to add warmth and fill out the lower frequencies, but it doesn't use a separate subwoofer, so in terms of quantity, it's not particularly large in amount. The vocals on here are also quite forward and emphasized, and I think these are usable for just about any purpose. They sound good for YouTube, music, and gaming. The layout on here has changed from the Y740. So with that one, you had a 60% layout with an extra column of macros on the left, whereas this removes the macros for a number pad on the right. Which layout you prefer will obviously depend on your use case. For gaming, you're not really going to benefit much from a number pad, but if you're working with spreadsheets, then obviously you will. In terms of the typing experience, the key travel is quite shallow, but it's very tactile. So it ends up being decent to type on, I would say. It's not a keyboard that really stands out as being particularly enjoyable to type on for people that are really picky. I would say this is a keyboard that was very easy to get used to. My typing speed and accuracy are right in line with what I usually get on my mechanical keyboard, but it loses a bit on the comfort because of the shallow key travel. It's a good keyboard, but it could definitely use more key travel. Same with literally every other gaming laptop except for the Alienware M15. That's still the one and only gaming laptop keyboard that I actually like. This uses what I believe to be a plastic trackpad. I find that the surface has the sticking effect when you drag with a bit too much pressure. It's smooth in that it's not a rough and gritty texture like sandpaper, but the sticking effect is kind of annoying. And regarding tracking accuracy, I would say it's quite good. I'm not really sure if the way I described it was clear enough, so here's a sound demo to illustrate what I'm talking about. In terms of build, it's similar to the Y740 with some relatively small improvements all around. So the screen is made of plastic and is fairly soft. The keyboard deck, I believe, is made from metal from what I can see. It's got very little flex and feels high quality to the touch. It doesn't at all feel like plastic or like cheap paint. I also like the color they used here. I think dark gray looks a lot better than black, especially at hiding oils and sweat from your hands. The hinge tension is excellent, and it uses this design where the hinge and the screen doesn't interfere with the rear exhaust vents. A big counterexample would be the MSI Prestige 15. It's basically right in the middle of the rear exhaust. I don't actually know how much this affects thermals, if at all, but this sort of just popped into my mind, and I thought I'd share this observation. For ports, you have a Thunderbolt 3 port, a USB-C, and a headphone jack on the left, a single USB-A on the right, that's USB 3.2 Gen 1, HDMI 2.0, two USB-As, also 3.2 Gen 1, Ethernet, and the charging port on the rear. Pretty good selection, I would say. Now inside, you have what I would consider to be the standard in terms of upgradability for gaming laptops. Basically, all gaming laptops will have 2 RAM slots, 2 M.2 slots, and an upgradable Wi-Fi card. On this particular laptop, there's a cover that protects the memory, so to access it, you'll have to pry open these clips around the perimeter and then remove it. But yes, the memory is upgradable. The fans in here are quite a bit bigger than most gaming laptops I've come across. It looks fairly similar to the Omen 15, which had amazing cooling performance. It doesn't actually perform as well as the Omen 15, however. I would consider 75 watts on the CPU to be around the upper end of thin and light gaming laptops, with the Omen 15 being the sole exception. I did notice, however, during gaming that the CPU and GPU weren't boosting as high as they could have. There was a pretty good amount of thermal headroom left, but I know that some people prefer not to run their laptops close to 100 degrees in order to minimize risk of damage and therefore extend the lifespan of a laptop. The trade-off here is that you get a 5 to 7% reduction in gaming performance in return for significantly lower temperatures. Games still run great, however. The RTX 2070 Super Max Q pushes out some really good frame rates, and I definitely wouldn't say the lower boost clocks are negatively impacting gaming performance in any significant way. Again, that's only with a combined CPU and GPU load. If you stress them individually,
Okay.
Your
Okay.
idea is waiting to be seen. Put it all on this
Camera.
beautiful.
individually, they will run at higher temperatures for higher boost
Okay,
clocks
I'm gonna watch a Reddit video
and
then.
performance. There's a 78 watt-hour battery inside that should
That
pull
day,
around 5.5 hours of battery life. Pretty standard, I would say, at least for a gaming laptop and in terms of battery capacity. So I guess conclusion then, the strength of the Legion 7i is
Jack is having it then.
that
Jack
again,
Black
right
is not having it.
HDR,
Bad day.
and that
Good.
makes this laptop very versatile in use cases. For example, if you're a
Very bad boy.
content creator, maybe you edit HDR videos, for example,
Jack
with without any
Oh my
compromise
god.
requiring an external monitor. It's also just an all-around great laptop without any major compromises. If I had to choose the 3 weakest areas to improve, it would probably be the trackpad, the battery life for an 8-hour full-time job, and more key travel on the keyboard. all three of those areas are good, but they're not class leading, is what I mean. I want to make it very clear that those are not issues. Those are just the three areas that I would prioritize in terms of what to improve for the next model. So there you have it. Very nice overall. Personally, for me, I would say this and the MSI GS66 Stealth are my two favorite gaming laptops so far. There's no first place because they each do some things better than the other. So it really depends on what aspect you value most. But if you're looking for a high-end gaming laptop with no major compromises, I would recommend this over the GS66 Stealth. That laptop does sacrifice some areas in the pursuit of portability, so it's a slightly more specialized laptop, whereas this is good for just about everything. Okay, I think I covered just about everything I wanted to talk about. All I have to say is you should subscribe if you haven't already, and if you enjoyed, more subscribers means I get more review units for laptops to check out. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.
Vamos cá, bigyan ko yung Dora.
Hello?
Dora.
The Dell XPS 15 is no kidding like the first Windows machine that's ever really tempted me away from my beloved Apple products. But there are a lot of things out there that you can add to this to make this an even better experience. So what are they? Let's find out. Not slamming it down today. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So again, I love the Dell XPS 15 from this year. The 9500 is no kidding. Over the last couple of days, I've been teaching myself Premiere Pro just so that I can use this in my own workflow because it's seriously wooing me. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about. The first accessory that I want to talk about is honestly, surprisingly enough, you don't really need any accessories to get this thing going. When I talk about a MacBook, I've at least got to mention a dongle so that you can ingest your SD card footage from all of the cameras you're using. If you're using this as a creative, you don't have to here because it's got an SD card reader built right into the body of the computer. How awesome is that? So you can basically do everything that involves running a YouTube channel without buying an additional extra piece. And what makes it even better is there is an accessory that you can buy, and this accessory comes with the computer itself. So this is a USB-C to HDMI and USB-A little dongle thing. And again, it comes with the XPS. If I wanted to buy this for my MacBook, this costs like 60 bucks. So without buying anything, you are already set up to have an external monitor, to be able to use a wireless mouse, and to have your SD card footage. So without buying anything, you're pretty well set up. But if we do want to get a little more functionality, if we do want to use this as both laptop and desktop mode, what are some things that I would add? So first off, I'm always going to recommend a good Bluetooth or wireless keyboard. Now this is the Microsoft Bluetooth keyboard. I think I found this on Amazon for like 40 bucks. It pairs really easily. The keys, can you hear the keys? The keys feel pretty good. And the reason I picked this one out is it reminds me a lot of the Magic keyboard that I use with my iMac, where everything's laid out very nicely. It's very small, compact, would easily fit in like travel luggage if you want to bring this with you somewhere. And it paired very easily. Now it does, unlike the Magic keyboard, you do need to make sure you have some AAA batteries for this, which could be good or bad depending on whether you like charging things or you just like putting extra batteries in them when they're dead. Always have a good keyboard because nobody likes, if you've been working from home since the whole social distancing thing started off, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Nobody likes this. This is the destroyer of backs that we will be finding for the next, like 6 months or so. Good keyboard, so nice. And then to go with this keyboard, you should also get a mouse. Now, this is just a cheapo. I will probably get a nicer wireless keyboard, but I like to err on the budget side of accessories for these kind of videos. And this is just a cheapo Logitech M325 that I bought at Best Buy. This also takes a battery. This takes a AA. What I like anymore with these little like travel wireless mice is the little transmitter just fits right inside of the mouse body by the battery, which is nice because some of us lose stuff all the time. So it's got to be combined or I'm never going to find it again. And yeah, so keyboard mouse setup, really easy, not very expensive. And with this dongle and the Bluetooth, you're good to go. Even though the XPS 15 does have a very nice trackpad, which is probably the best trackpad that I've ever seen on a Windows machine, it looks great. It is functionally great. Get a mouse. So let's talk about some other things. First off, when you talk about accessories, you got to cart those accessories around, right? There's no good accessory. You never want to just throw a bunch of accessories in a backpack because they will get broken. They'll scratch your computer, whatever. So this is a little bag that I found also on Amazon. I buy most of my stuff on Amazon from I assume this is from BagSmart, but this just carries all your cables and a bunch of extra stuff. It's got a little SD card slot in here, another random spot for probably your AirPods if you're an AirPod user. It's got straps for cables. Other stuff that we'll talk about here in a second. It's got lots of straps for cables. It's built really well. And if you watch my accessory videos, you know that I'm a big stickler for zippers. And this thing has really, really nice zippers. If you buy gear that has zippers on it and the zippers are garbage, your gear is garbage. Because if you can't open it or the zippers are going to break, what do you actually have? So this has very nice zippers. Even this one on the inside is pretty good. They're not YKK zippers. YKK is my preferred brand of zippers. Yes, I have preferred brands of zippers, because I'm weird like that, I guess. These are not YKK, but they do have nice teeth. It's got a good pull. This will be something I will bring with me when we can start traveling again and I do my videos on the go. Things that I had inside of this thing, though, let's talk about. So this is the base model, and it comes with a 256 gigabyte solid-state drive. The cool thing about Windows machines, and all of you that use Windows already know this, but for those of us in Mac world, this is a novelty. You can upgrade the internal RAM and the hard drive of this computer. But if you don't want to crack open the case, you should get little things like this. External drives are very useful. So this is just a standard hard drive that has 4 terabytes of information on it. And for me, this is where all the process files go because I don't necessarily need them all the time. I just need a place to stuff stuff so that I don't have to fill up the internal drive of the laptop. These are very cheap. You can get these for like $100, 4 terabytes. I always carry one of these with me. It's USB-C. It's got this nice protective rubber coating, and this is like a staple of the YouTuber world. Can you even be considered a YouTuber without one of these LaCie drives? I don't know. But another really good one, and this is the one that I really like, SSD T5. They did just come out with they've got the T6 and the T7 just came out. But this is a USB-C solid-state drive. Do you see this? It's easy. It's like super small. You can fit this anywhere. It's very fast. This is a 500 gigabyte version. You can also get up to 2 terabytes, I think they have. This is what I edit off of. So I will plug this into the Thunderbolt 3 or the USB-C port on my laptop, and I will do all of my editing off of this. So that, again, I don't have to fill up all of the internal drives on the laptop. Not as big of a deal. Maybe we'll do a video where we'll upgrade the XPS 15 because it's very exciting to me that I can do that. Normally, that's not something that I can. You always need to have some kind of alternate storage because if you only have your footage saved in one spot, you don't actually have it saved anywhere because all drives can fail. Speaking of drives, and one of the, still a novelty to me having this XPS 15 is it does have an SD card reader. So let's talk about the SD cards that I recommend. I only use the Sony Tough M cards. Now, there is a much more expensive G card out there, but these M cards do basically everything you could need when it comes to video. These will handle write speeds of up to 150 megabits per second, which for me, 4K 30 frames per second, 10-bit, no problem. 4K 30 frames per second, 10-bit, these will handle 10-bit footage without any issue. And what I really like is it's one solid piece. Like normally, if you look at an SD card, it's 2 pieces glued together, but I've had instances where they break apart or I have issues where the locking bar breaks. These just physically don't have that. It's just one piece without any locks. It's UHS-2, which means you'll get faster transfer speed. They're waterproof. They're tough. This is all I use, and they're not very expensive. So I would highly recommend investing in these.
Launch us when I give you the word.
On your word, brother.
I can't wait for you guys to see outside.
I hear outside is beautiful.
From who?
The lady.
It's beautiful outside. Jamie, go out.
I'm trepidatious.
Triple what?
It means scared.
Dude, nice word.
Did he say word?
Welcome to the great outdoors.
Wow, a great light.
Dangerous?
Let's find out. That's why you should always swim with a buddy. Buried treasure! I'm rich! Yeah!
Friend or foe? Oh, definitely friends. I am King Neptune, ruler of Scandinavia. All four corners.
Can you make me a duchess or a countess, Your Highness?
No, but I can make you a starfish. Quick, into my impenetrable fortress! The giant cometh! I don't think impenetrable means what you think.
Now that your castle's fallen, Your Highness, what should we do?
Jousting match! Ride, Sabine! Make haste, Lady Brooke!
Are those your quickest steeds, your kingness?
No, those are, but they're resting from the fox hunt. Behold, a new home!
I'm digging that moat.
No need, it's deep enough.
Sweet ride. Let's do it.
Enjoy the sights! Thanks, Your Highness!
Look, a red milk snake.
Is she having a baby?
I think she's having a frog.
There it is. The rainbow making machine. It's how they make rainbows.
Even the ones in the sky?
Cha, it's just a bigger machine. Whoa, they don't have that under the bed.
I want to go home.
Let's do it.
Do your swimming tin boys to take Gil's mind off the thunder.
Okay.
Slow down, brother. Don't tailgate. Watch out. I love backseat driving, don't you?
Hang on! Sorry, Mrs. Bunny!
Hurry! The monorail is leaving! Monorail? The best way to get to your homeland is the monorail. How do we get there? Princess!
Awesome!
Thanks, Your Highness.
Good travels!
Whoa!
Hang on,
We made it!
Is that a hairball?
How else was I supposed to move on?
Hurry! The monorail's leaving!
Oh my gosh. The goldfish. Oh my gosh, it's a goldfish. Wow, this goldfish.
Falling down.
Beyond is still.
Brought you a souvenir from the outside, bro! Oh, beret! Trey, awesome, dude!
Okay, that's enough. I had it up for you. Ah, it's fighting. Okay.
I'm stuck!
Oh, I love a good pop twist! The snack that smiles back, goldfish.
Man, sorry, I'm busy today. And now because it's gone out pretty far. Shit, bro, still already you have so still grounded. We see the no. Okay, it just. Oh my gosh, Son, that is a BBL making PCs for living from Hill
Alright, friends,
Plains.
here's the deal. This laptop is the best value you're going to find in a modern gaming laptop. Trying to bring together a brand around gaming. And, you know, I'm not an esports guy, but I do respect the fact that
Just did know.
5 stayed exceptionally cool during the Welcome back to Deal Unboxing, and today we're going to review Lenovo's new Ideapad 5 laptop. With AMD's 3rd Gen Ryzen 7 8-core processor, we finally have AMD's 3rd Gen Ryzen mobile processors available for laptops. So in this in-depth review, we're going to go over the features, specs, benchmarks, and also do a teardown of this laptop. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the review. Also, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications for future videos. So let's do a quick unboxing. In the box, we have a Lenovo Ideapad 5 laptop, 65-watt power adapter.
The video for unboxing.
Now let's look at the specs. The laptop is powered by AMD 3rd Gen Ryzen 7 4700U 8-core processor,
Ryzen
8GB DDR4 RAM, 15.6-inch Full HD LED IPS display, 256GB NVMe SSD, 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6 wireless card, Bluetooth 5.1, built-in 720p webcam with privacy shutter and microphone, also fingerprint reader on power button, Windows 10, and weighs only 3.7 pounds. Now let's look at the ports. On one side, we have USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, SD card reader, and a reset button. And on the other side, we have one USB-C port with power delivery and display output, HDMI port, headphone and microphone jack combo, and a power input. Lenovo Ideapad 5 comes with 720p resolution camera with microphone, and following is a video quality from the webcam. The camera's picture quality is good enough for video calls. The camera also has a privacy feature that lets you close the webcam when not in use. Also, the laptop has a fingerprint reader on the power button. You can set your Ideapad to not wake up unless it detects your biometric signature. These security features make Ideapad 5 the smart choice. Overall, Ideapad has a design that is simple and clean, and a smooth plastic body hides fingerprints very well. When it comes to upgradability, Lenovo allows you to upgrade some of the components. You can access the laptop motherboard by removing the screws from the back cover. You need to be careful while removing the back cover with the proper tool, but the process is very simple. You can replace the existing NVMe SSD with a bigger or faster drive, and you can add also additional 2.5 form factor SATA hard drive with available hard drive mounting space. But unfortunately, the RAM is not upgradable because memory is soldered to the motherboard and there's no additional sodium slot. So you have to configure the laptop with proper RAM to meet your requirement. But good thing RAM comes with dual channels, so you get good performance benefit. The laptop comes with 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6 card, which is currently the fastest Wi-Fi card available in the market. In the CPU cooling department, we have dual heat pipe with heatsink and single fan. You cannot hear the fan noise during general usage, but temperature never crossed 70 degrees Celsius during our test, which means cooling is sufficient enough to keep the laptop temperature under control during gaming or CPU-intensive workloads. Starting at just 3.7 pounds, the Ideapad 5 laptop is designed to go wherever life takes you. The laptop offers a clean and modern look. The laptop's built material is all plastic, and it is understandable considering its price point. First impressions from the visual standpoint are good when compared to any other laptop in this price category. There's no flex to the body, and Ideapad 5 was built with great level of attention to detail. Its smooth, like feel on the surface provide great comfort to touch. Now let's look at the specs and features. The display has thin bezels, and our unit came with 15.6-inch Full HD IPS display. An LED backlight provides thinner and more energy-efficient screen. The screen needs a little help from other hand when open the lid up. The Ideapad 5 visuals are handled by integrated AMD Radeon graphics. Watching YouTube or Netflix content looks good, and this display works well in low light conditions. As for the brightness, it comes in around 300 nits, which is on the low side, means laptop screen is only good for indoor usage. Also, viewing angles are okay, not so great for IPS panel. The panel supports 65% sRGB, 50% Adobe RGB, which is also on the low side, but it is understandable considering its price point. The keyboard is good for longer typing experience. The pressure point is good, and the feedback of the key is a little bit stiff. On the other hand, the key size and the arrangements are very good. And our unit came with the backlit keyboard. You have to press Function key plus spacebar to activate the backlit, and there are two brightness levels. You have to press Function key and spacebar twice to get the full brightness. As far as the touchpad is concerned, it is a regular size touchpad, and it feels good during general usage, and makes a solid clicking sound. In the performance, our Ideapad 5 is equipped with AMD Ryzen 7 4700U processor. The processor is based on AMD's latest Ryzen 7 nanometer technology, with 8 cores and 8 threads, with the base clock speed of 2 GHz and maximum clock speed of 4.1 GHz. This processor is used in mainstream and 2-in-1 laptops. Its performance is sufficient for everyday general usage, office tasks, and gaming. It can also handle very well some more demanding stuff such as video editing. Following is a 4K video file sample at high bitrate and laptop was able to run it flawlessly without any lag or problem. During our video editing test in Adobe Premiere Pro, we were able to load 4K video clips, and while scrubbing around, it was able to handle without any problem, and finish the 4K clip encoding to H.265 format quite fast. Our unit scored 2,661 points in Cinebench multi-thread CPU performance benchmark, running at 2 GHz, and comparing it against Intel's Core i9 processor, which scored 2,652 points in Cinebench. An Intel Core i9 is an 8-core 16-thread processor, usually comes with MacBook Pro, which is a $2,500 laptop. And AMD beating Intel's top-of-the-line Intel processor is an excellent achievement. And in CPU Z benchmark, laptop CPU scored 3,514 points in multi-thread and 513 points in single-thread. And whereas Intel Core i9 achieved 4,161 points in multi-thread and 499 points in single-thread, again great performance by AMD. Next, in Geekbench CPU benchmark, AMD Ryzen 7 CPU scored 1,121 points in single-core and 5,335 points in multi-core, whereas Intel Core i9 scored 1,191 points in single-core and 6,971 points in multi-core. Also in Geekbench GPU benchmark, AMD Radeon GPU scored 11,658 points. Next, we ran 3D Mark Skydiver Benchmark, and laptop scored 12,856 points in CPU score and 10,450 points in graphics score, with a total score of 10,697 points. In 3D Mark's Graphic Gaming Test 1, integrated AMD Radeon graphics was able to achieve close to 50 frames per second, and in Graphics Test 2, it was able to achieve 46 frames per second, making this laptop a good budget gaming machine. Just don't expect dedicated graphics-like performance, but I'm really impressed by the AMD Radeon Vega graphics performance. It is a big upgrade from last-gen Vega graphics and provides a decent gaming experience in many of the popular gaming titles. In the storage solution, Lenovo Ideapad 5 offers excellent read and write rates that are average in its class. Our unit scored 2,005 MB per second read and 1,120 MB per second write in SSD benchmark, thanks to its M.2 256GB NVMe SSD. The Lenovo Ideapad comes with 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6 card, which supports both 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz dual band, with a max speed of 2.4 gigabits per second. In the audio, the Ideapad 5 is equipped with two 20-watt speakers facing upwards. They get loud enough to fill a medium-sized room, but the sound they output is hollow and lifeless. And following is the audio sample. The Ideapad 5 stayed exceptionally cool during our testing. The hottest location of the laptop is the underside, reaching 69 degrees Celsius during our CPU-Z stress test. That is well below our 95 degrees Celsius comfort threshold. So great job by Lenovo. In the battery life department, Ideapad 5 has up to 7 hours of runtime, but Lenovo claims battery should last up to 14 hours of runtime. This is more than enough for students for on-campus projects or taking notes during classes. Laptop comes with 65 Wh quick charge 2 power adapter, and with only 15 minutes of plug-in time can provide up to 3 hours of runtime. And the battery charger is small and light enough to carry around in the backpack. The Lenovo Ideapad 5 laptop is a great overall performance machine. I'm pleasantly surprised by the performance of the system. The latest 3rd gen AMD Ryzen processor in particular offers better CPU and GPU performance and destroys Intel counterpart in most of the categories. It is also a great mid-tier gaming machine for casual gamers and powerful enough to handle 4K video editing as well. The Lenovo Ideapad 5 is an excellent buy for under $550, and our unit price was $520. I would absolutely recommend it for anyone who's in the market for good-looking, well-built, and great overall performance machine. Let me know what you guys think of Lenovo Ideapad 5 laptop in the comments below. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
See you on Angel. Oh, yeah, that's
Hi,
nice.
my name is Kerry Holzman, and today I'm going to show you how you can easily upgrade your old slow mechanical. Noticed the memory I purchased is from Samsung, and I got that with Amazon Prime, so I had it the next day after I ordered it. So that is a very useful utility, the CPU-Z. It's completely free. You always see I use the portable version. I'm not installing anything, which is off of that. So and we're going to shut the computer off by holding the power button in for up to the front for the sake of, being confident. Obviously, knowing one will lead you to knowing the other. Click OK here, and then you can use some of that RAM for caching. It's available on some Samsung SSDs. It will be an option available in the Samsung Magician software. If it's grayed out, that means it's not available for the Samsung drive.
Country is the Filipino. Philippines. I will open it in a new tab. That's google.com. Panday. Tagalog. I'm sorry, but because it did not make a spot remixed. Spawn's effect. In moderate light rays. Absolute frames. I'm going to say best type the spawn's effect. Okay, now this thing. I am a dream. Color corrector secondary. Why? Why? That's animated. You just said animation. What adding light ray. A6. Executed.
You have. Not a big deal. If it is available to you, you might want to experiment turning it on and seeing if you notice a difference in speed. Most people will. That's the benefit of caching. And there you have it. It's just that easy to upgrade your own hard drive. You don't need to pay somebody to do it. It's very simple. And of course, you can use Acronis to make image backups to use as backups as well. And you would just follow the same procedure with an external hard drive you have laying around, and that will do an image of your system. So if your hard drive should ever fail, you'll have everything. And by everything, I mean every temp file and every virus if you don't clean it before you make the image. It literally takes every bit of data with impunity. So I hope you found the video useful and educational. And please hit the like button if you enjoyed it and would like to see more videos like this. Until next time, my name is Kerry Holzman, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Now, no sooner than I fixed that laptop than the next one came in, and this is more.
The Lenovo Legion 5 and HP Omen 15 are both excellent Ryzen gaming laptops, but which one should you pick? I've compared everything to help you decide which is right for you. The two configurations I've got here have basically the same key specs. Both laptops have the 8-core Ryzen 7 4800H processor, NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti graphics, and 16GB of memory and dual channel with 144Hz screens. You can configure both laptops a bit differently. You can find examples and updated prices linked in the description. Both laptops have a similar build quality. They've got plastic lids, and the Omen has an aluminium interior, while the Legion has a soft rubberized finish. The Omen has a little more flex to the lid, and the front of it could be a little sharp, so I'll give the Legion a slight edge here. The Legion 5 was heavier than the Omen 15, and this weight difference gap widens further when including the power bricks, as the Legion 5 has a larger and higher wattage brick. Along with weighing more, the Legion 5 is bigger in all dimensions. It's slightly wider, thicker, and about 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters deeper. Both laptops have a 15.6-inch 1080p 144Hz screen. They both have FreeSync, however the Legion has a larger FreeSync range. The Legion 5 also has a MUX switch, which lets you disable the integrated Radeon graphics after a reboot and only use the NVIDIA GPU. This will boost frame rate in games, giving an edge to the Legion. The Legion also gives us the option of enabling or disabling overdrive, which affects screen response time. Even with overdrive disabled, the response time on the Legion is faster than the Omen. Then the Legion takes it the next level with overdrive enabled. The screen in the Legion can also get brighter at full brightness, though the Omen was ahead at lower brightness levels. The Legion screen also has better color gamut. It's not far ahead, but it is better. Backlight bleed was pretty similar. Even with overdrive disabled, the response time on the Legion than the Omen. Then the Legion takes it to the next level with overdrive enabled. The screen in the Legion can also get
Phase Max
with overdrive enabled. The screen in the Legion can also get brighter at full brightness. The Omen was ahead at lower brightness levels. The Legion screen also has better color gamut. It's not far ahead, but it is better. Backlight bleed was pretty similar. I didn't notice a problem with either of my units, but this will vary between panels. Both laptops have a 720p camera above the screen in the center. The Lenovo also has a privacy shutter. The camera on the Omen 15 is pretty average, but it's way better than what the Lenovo has to offer. Both laptops have decent keyboards with white backlighting. The Legion has both a numpad without sacrificing the arrow keys, while the Omen instead skips the numpad to prioritize the arrow keys. I liked that the Omen has function keys on both left and right, and although the power button is next to the delete key, an accidental mispress doesn't put it to sleep. The power button on the Legion is better though, because the lighting changes based on the performance mode you're using, allowing you to quickly know. The Omen also has some holes for airflow above the keyboard. In terms of actually typing on the keyboards though, they're close and both good, but personally I preferred the Legion. It just felt a bit more tactile. Both have precision touchpads which worked well, though the Omen's was a little larger which I liked, but I preferred the click feeling of the Legion. Completely subjective though. Let's get into the I/O differences. On the left, both have a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port and 3.5mm audio combo jack. That's all for the Legion. The Omen otherwise has its power input at the back, gigabit Ethernet port, HDMI 2.0 output, and full-sized SD card slot. On the right, the Legion just has a second USB Type A port, while the Omen has a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type C port with DisplayPort 1.4 support, mini DisplayPort, and two USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A ports. The Legion has the rest of its I/O on the back, which I personally prefer as it keeps bulky cables out of the way. Though, as we saw in the dimensions earlier, this does make it stick out a little more. It's got icons above the ports, so you can easily see where to plug in without turning the machine around. The back of the Legion has its gigabit Ethernet, USB 3.2 Type C port with DisplayPort output, two more USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports for 4 in total, HDMI 2.0 output, power input, and Kensington lock. Neither laptop can be charged over Type C, and neither has Thunderbolt support. All display outputs connect directly to the NVIDIA GPU, bypassing Optimus. So basically to recap, the Lenovo has more Type A ports, but the Omen has a mini DisplayPort and an SD card slot instead. Underneath is pretty similar. They both have adequate air ventilation towards the back half directly above the fans. The rubber feet on both were comparable. Both prevented sliding on my desk. Inside, both have the battery towards the front. My Legion 5 also has a 2.5-inch drive bay, but you can also get it without that and get a larger battery instead. Both have two M.2 slots, though again for the Legion, you need to remove the 2.5-inch mount to use one. Otherwise, both have dual-channel memory and Wi-Fi 6 card. As the battery in the Omen is larger, it's lasting longer as you'd expect. But yeah, if you got the Legion 5 with its 80-watt battery option instead of the 2.5-inch drive bay, then I'd expect that to do better instead. Both laptops have the speakers towards the front on the left and right sides. Listening to both side by side, I think the Legion sounds better. It was clearer with more bass, though the Omen gets a bit louder. The latency mon results were quite similar, though the Legion 5 was a little better in that regard. Next, let's take a look at thermals. Both laptops were tested in an ambient room temperature of 21 degrees Celsius, and both have two fans with shared heat pipes. The Omen has one side exhaust, while the Legion exhausts from both sides. I've done all testing in the highest performance modes available, so performance mode, but I've also covered all other performance modes in the full reviews linked in the description. These are the temperatures of the CPU. I've got the Omen in red and Legion in purple. So in these tests, the processor was a little warmer on the Omen. When we look at the GPU results for the same tests though, the Legion was now a little warmer outside of idle. No major differences either way. When we look at clock speeds during the same tests, they were extremely close together. There was an ever so slight lead from the Legion, though it was also a bit warmer. Things are even closer together when looking at the GPU clock speeds, basically no difference in practice. Here's what we're looking at in terms of Cinebench R20 scores from these machines with their respective highest performance modes in use. I've got two results from the Omen. Out of the box stock, the Legion 5 was around 6% faster in multi-core performance. However, you can use the third-party Ryzen controller software to boost performance and make it comparable to the the Legion. I didn't find this to change the Legion's score. It already seems to perform as best as it can. As for the areas where you'll actually be putting your hands, the Legion was just a tiny bit warmer at idle. No big differences though. When under heavy stress test in the highest performance modes, the Omen was noticeably cooler, but it does this by running the fans louder. Let's have a listen. Both were still audible when idling, though the Legion was a little quieter. When under load, the Omen was always louder, though the Omen does at least give us the option of setting the fan to max speed should we wish. There's no further fan controls with the Legion. Let's compare some games next. All laptops were tested in their best performance modes, and the Legion 5 was tested with Optimus disabled, aka hybrid mode off. The Legion was tested more recently, so the NVIDIA drivers are a little newer, but this shouldn't make a practical difference. The Legion also applies a GPU overclock through the Vantage software too. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested with the game's benchmark tool. I've got the Omen 15 in red and the Legion 5 in purple, and the Legion was clearly ahead at all setting levels, with more of a difference noted at the lower setting presets. Battlefield 5 was tested by running through the same campaign mission on both machines. Again, the Legion 5 was ahead regardless of setting levels in use, both in terms of average FPS, and in most instances, even further ahead in 1% low. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark. Again, the Legion was in front of the Omen at all setting levels. CSGO was tested with the Euletical FPS benchmark, and I've chosen this game as it's heavily affected by the option of disabling Optimus. Basically, the processor's integrated graphics can act as a bottleneck compared to only using the NVIDIA discrete graphics, especially at higher frame rates. And this is why the Legion 5 is 31% faster here. Control was tested by running through the same part of the game on both laptops. The Legion was ahead again, but at higher setting levels, I doubt it's going to be a difference you'd actually notice in practice. Call of Duty Modern Warfare was tested in the same manner. Quite close results in terms of 1% low performance, while the Legion was further ahead in average frame rate. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the game's benchmark tool. The Legion 5 was ahead in average FPS at all but very high settings, though it was super close. But what was more interesting is that the Omen was ahead in 1% lows at all but the highest setting preset. The Legion was back on top in The Witcher 3 in all aspects. Again, not huge gains at higher setting levels, so it seems like once the 1660 Ti gets loaded up, the difference is negligible compared to lower setting levels where the CPU generally matters more. The results can vary a fair bit based on the specific game. On average, out of these 16 games though, the Legion 5 was almost 6% faster than the Omen 15. It's being held up by the CSGO outlier. Without that, the Legion is instead around 4.3% faster. Either way, still a reasonable win given they have the same CPU and GPU. I've also tested 20 plus games on each of these laptops at all setting levels and compared them with a bunch of other laptops. Links to those videos are in the description if you want more results. I've also got the results from 3D Mark's Firestrike and TimeSpy, and the Legion 5 was a little ahead in all cases. I've also tested some content creator workloads with the Puget Systems benchmark tools. Adobe Premiere was scoring less than 4. Now for the final difference, the price. You can check updated prices using the links in the description, as prices will change over time. At the time of recording, the Legion 5 can be picked up on Amazon for under $1,000 US. The Omen 15 was on sale for $1,050 US in the past, but the regular price seems to be $1,250. Stock levels of both are in flux due to Ryzen processor shortages, so if you see a deal, don't sleep on it. With all of that in mind, let's summarize the good and the bad parts of both gaming laptops to help you decide which is better. Build quality was quite similar. I preferred the metal interior of the Omen over the rubbery Legion, but I think the Legion is a little better as it was slightly less flexible and it also doesn't have a sharp front edge. The Legion just straight up has a much better screen. That's not to say the Omen's is as bad as, say, the Asus TUF A15 or anything, but the Legion's is brighter, has better color gamut, faster response time, higher contrast ratio, and a larger FreeSync range. It's basically better in all measurable aspects. In addition to that, the Legion gives us the option of disabling Optimus or hybrid mode, which gives a performance boost in games as this bypasses the use of the integrated graphics. This is likely the main reason as to why the Legion was performing around 6% better in games than the Omen. Of course, results can vary a fair bit based on the specific game though, as shown here. Whether under stress test or gaming, both machines offered similar CPU and GPU clock speeds. The internal temperatures weren't that different. In general, the Legion was warmer on the GPU, but the Omen was warmer on the CPU. Either way, no thermal throttling, and neither were even passing 90 degrees Celsius, so no issues there. The Omen was a bit cooler on the keyboard area when under load though, but this is at the expense of louder fans. I don't think the Legion was particularly hot or anything, so it's just a trade-off as to which you prefer. Neither have fan curve control, however the Omen does let us set the fan to max speed. The Legion has an edge in CPU performance, at least stock out of the box. If you're willing to use software like Ryzen controller, it is possible to get
Like,
I am going to rant on PJ Masks because it sucks. Due to Catboy, Arwallet and Jekko as their punishment. So fuck PJ Masks. Fan.
PJ Masks? More like ST sucks. Oh my god. This show sucks. This show is a huge ripoff to the Powerpuff Girls, which is way better than this. This show is about these faggots and they love
More like PS Craps. Oh my god, this show sucks. The show is a large ripoff of the Powerpuff Girls, which was better. If you hate the Powerpuff Girls, I respect your opinion. Anyways, the show is about 3 characters, and they like to go on failure adventures together. Catboy's the leader. He does not look like a cat. If he ever tried to look like that in real life, he should be grounded by his parents. Owlette does not know how to fly. If she ever tried to fly in real life, she will crash and fall down to the ground. Gecko is a stupid lizard and he uses no salts or bubbles. The animation sucks, the characters are annoying, is a good point.